you're welcome to follow along with me if you have your laptops here. Guys, in terms of our course, this is what you would see if you were logging on to our course for the day. The ones that you need to be concerned about, the things you need to be concerned about on our Canvas page. We've got a discussions tab. We'll use that somewhat in this class, but anytime we do a discussion, it'll be posted in an assignment anyway. Your grades tab you're going to want to check on because that's where you'll find out how I've scored your assignments. The biggest one I want you to be concerned about is called modules. Modules is basically how I break out the chapters in this class. So for example, if you log on to Canvas and you click on the modules, right now you'll see a few things listed here. The first things that we have up here, we have Start Here and Welcome, Start Here Assignment, Start Here Discussion Board, and a YouTube playlist. None of these are for any credit. It's all 0 credit just to get you used to using the system. So if you go, for example, Start Here and Welcome, you can download the syllabus there, a copy of it. I brought extra paper copies for the new folks today. There's a Start Here assignment, which I'd like you to do. It's 0 credit, but it lets you get used to uploading files in Canvas. So I'm going to ask you to do that. However, every time we start a new chapter, guys, if you click on Chapter 1 Presentation right here, it'll bring you up to a place where you can download the PowerPoint slides I'm going to be covering in class. You are most welcome to bring your laptop and have those in front of you. You're welcome to print them out. You're welcome to do whatever you want with that. The one thing I am insisting on in class, though, even if you're doodling, I want you to have something in front of you, whether it's your laptop or a tablet to take notes in this class. The other rule in this class, although we're going to be using our cell phones for part of the class, I appreciate no personal use of cell phones during our class. If we go back to modules, for example, you have 2 assignments that are going to become due next Friday. One is called the 5 Environments of Business, and one is your LinkedIn Profile Project. We're going to be covering both of these on Friday. These are not difficult assignments. I am saying this directly. Don't worry about working on your assignments yet for this class. We're going to cover them in class. The purpose of this class is not to be necessarily academically rigorous, but to give you an overall exposure to everything in the world of business. If you have problems navigating any of this stuff with Canvas, my office is in Schwab 205. If you go up to the 2nd floor, rear corner of the building, just look for all the Batman stuff, you will find me. Come see me. If I'm not there, email me, tell me when you're going to be around, I'll be there. So before we jump into today, guys, I also want to remind you, please get a copy of the text if you would. And if you have questions, you're welcome to take a look at it up here. There's several editions floating around. I prefer the current 12th edition. If you're one edition back, we can probably work with that. Before we jump into some actual content today, what questions do you have? Questions, comments, or concerns? Things for the good of the order, as they say. Well, if that's the case, guys, we're gonna jump in. Guys, today we're going to be starting off because I'm asking you to check in on Canvas if you haven't already. One of the Start Here activities is just asking you to introduce yourself. I'm asking you to get the textbook and read the first chapter. The LinkedIn assignment, how many of you, by show of hands, by the way, remind me, already have a LinkedIn page? That's awesome, by the way. If you already have a LinkedIn page, we're going to help you make it even better. If you don't have a LinkedIn page, we're going to get you set up on LinkedIn. A big part of this class is getting you prepared to take your career to the next level as well. We always, 9 times out of 10, are going to start off class with a little bit of discussion of current events. Who here can tell me what's going on between the United States and China when it comes to trade right now? What's happening here, guys?
It's a trade war.
It is a trade war. What does that mean? It's a great term for it. Who here has ever heard, by show of hands, who here has ever heard of the term tariff? What is a tariff, guys? What's a tariff? It's exactly right. We use tariffs to try to incentivize people to buy products that are made in our country. So, for example, tariffs are put on things such as agriculture, technology, all these other things we export to other countries and import here. The idea is, if we're getting cheap goods and services from another country, we want to incentivize people to buy stuff coming from our country. Do tariffs work? What are your thoughts? Do tariffs work? I want you to think about that question because we're going to start off today with a brief video about the first phase of trying to resolve this trade war. I'm going to ask you that question again. So we're unhappy with some of the representation our products, goods, and services we're getting in China. What do we buy from China, by the way, guys? I'm sorry? We buy a lot of steel from China. We're going to be talking later about the effect that had on this region directly. What else do we buy from China? Lots of labor. Tell me more about that, sir.
Factories, we outsource a lot of things.
I guarantee everybody in this room has something that was made in China somewhere on them today. What American retailer is almost completely dependent on China? Thinking of, yes?
Nike.
Nike for sure. I'm thinking about a big retailer, like a brick and mortar retailer. Who am I thinking about? Walmart. You better believe it. Almost everything at Walmart is made in China. So we're benefiting from cheap goods and services. But at the same time, guys, we're also losing labor to other countries. How many of you, by show of hands, use iPhone as your phone of choice? Okay. What is the most recent iPhone? If we went for the iPhone 11 Pro, what are we paying for one of those? Yeah, they're expensive, man. If they made that phone in the United States, what would that phone cost? At least $15,000, probably closer to $2,000. So that's how we benefit from some of these issues. Right now, anything from China, most things coming in from China, we're slapping a 25% tariff on. That means something that costs $100 costs $125 now. At the same time, we have concerns. One of the things that the president is concerned about, when I say this stuff too, guys, because we will be crossing over. Business and politics are strange bedfellows, but they cross over a lot. I will never tell you politically what you should think. I will tell you the impacts of decisions that are being made in the government. The president has taken a hard line on China, mainly because of intellectual property. A lot of things that we get from China, for example, are pirated U.S. goods. People come up with ideas, and oftentimes Chinese manufacturers will rip them off or resell them to Americans. The biggest ways we're being affected right now, though, agriculture. I said I was going to talk about bacon. Where do you think the number one consumer of U.S. bacon is in terms of exports? Take a guess. It's China. China can't get enough bacon. I mean, it's like America. We think we're the bacon capital of the world. The Chinese love bacon too, and we were selling a lot of it to them. What other product are we having a hard time getting rid of now because China was a big consumer of it? It's an agricultural product. I'll give you a hint. It goes into a lot of stuff in Chinese food. Good guess. Really close. I'm thinking vegetarians. Soybeans. We are one of the largest soybean producers in the world. Soybeans, of course, are used to make tofu. And we're exporting very little to other countries right now. So that's the big challenge. It's going to be interesting. So I'm going to ask the question for you again, guys. Let's say, for example, we have a trade where I'm going to put somebody on the spot. Sir, tell me your name again. Lewis. Let's say Lewis and I both have two countries. And right now, I'm not happy because I don't feel I'm selling enough in Lewis's country. And what's your country make? What's your big product? Steel. You make steel, and I sell soybeans. So I say, well, Lewis here isn't buying enough of my soybeans, so his steel, I'm going to put a 25% tariff on everything that comes into my country. Lewis, what are you going to do in return?
Put a 25% tariff on my steel.
Exactly right. So in the long run, do tariffs really work?
No.
And it is not sustainable. It's one of these things, it can be an effective short-term measure, and this is my opinion. I encourage you to have your own. I think in many ways it's a more symbolic gesture to say we need to talk about these things. So sometimes when we get into what the government is doing involving business, oftentimes there's more to it than meets the eye. Questions or comments before we jump into our material today? We'll be doing this almost all the time. Guys, I'm saying this directly. If you have nothing on your desk in front of you, please put something on your desk in front of you, even if it is a piece of paper, so you can take notes. Guys, we're going to be jumping into the basics of business today. What we're going to be talking about is how business actually works. What are the environments of business? Why should we study it? Why is it important for us to understand how a globally connected world works? So we're going to be talking about basic stuff like what profit is versus revenue. We're going to be talking about how we create wealth in countries. Guys, we're lucky in this country. We have a very big country that is rich in natural resources. Other people are not so fortunate. We're also going to be talking about how wealth affects economies, how spending affects economies, getting into macro and microeconomics right on the edges. And we're also going to be talking about the effects technology has on business. So let's just jump in, guys. Anybody who tries to make a good or a service and make a profit has a business. In the United States, guys, what's a bigger percentage of our businesses? Is it service or is it manufacturing? Yes. In the old days, it was. We're a service economy now. Let's think about it, guys. If you work in education, you work in services. If you have a restaurant, you have a service. If you work in education, you're providing a service. In fact, Amazon, who we associate as being the biggest retailer in the world, sells more services than they do goods and products. They have web services. They sell services to other companies. So goods are things we can actually buy. Physical items, whether you're buying a car or a washing machine or a television, that's a good. A service is something that's intangible. Think about it, guys. How many people in this room have a subscription to either Apple Music or Spotify? Yeah, me too, man. I love my Spotify. I can't touch Spotify. I mean, I can touch the app on my phone. I can't put my arms around it and hug it and say, oh my God, I love music so much, but I do. It's a service. And we're doing more and more in the online economy these days. Let me give you an example how that's affecting things. By show of hands here, guys, when you were kids, how many of you have a fond memory of walking through a Toys R Us? Wasn't that the best? What happened to Toys R Us 2 years ago? It went bankrupt. Can anybody tell me why?
Kids don't play with toys anymore.
That's exactly, sir, you nailed it. They're calling it age compression. What do kids want these days? They want phones, they want video games, they want things that we can't touch. So the services sector is changing everything. And by the way, Target got hit hard with this Christmas season as well because nobody's buying toys anymore. In terms of people who decide that they want to be a part of the business economy, we call those folks entrepreneurs. They're risk takers. They're people who want to do something big with business. By show of hands, yet again, how many of you want to own your own businesses? Yeah, you guys have a tolerance for risk. You got big ideas. You got entrepreneurial spirit. Those are the people that made this country great. Could somebody tell me, by the way, because we're talking about cash, we're talking about making business work, what's the difference between revenue and profit? Yes, sir.
Revenue is the total amount of money you make, and then profits how much is left over after expenses.
Excellent, excellent definition. So guys, here's the trick. We got a lot of revenue moving through our .com economy right now. But I'm going to name some companies. I want you to tell me if you think they're profitable or not. Amazon. Is Amazon a profitable company? They are. But they weren't originally. How about Uber? Nope. How about Lyft? Nope. How about Spotify? Nope. How about Netflix? Nope. None of these companies are making a profit yet. They are making tons of revenue, but they're spending a lot in expenses. So that's the question. Can this be a sustainable model? It's the idea of how, at what point are investors going to say we're not seeing the return? So revenue is how much money we're pulling in. Profit is after we pay all our expenses, do we have any cake to put back in our pockets? And if we're operating at a loss, that means we're spending more money than we are making. Check this out, guys. In 2018, Netflix spent $12 billion, billion with a B, developing content. So they're spending more money than they're pulling in. By the way, guys, this will also tell you how weird the economy is right now. If you looked at the internet, the entire big pipeline of the internet, between the hours of 8 p.m. and 10 p.m., Monday through Friday, what percentage of internet traffic is going to Netflix? Out of 100% internet traffic, can you guess? Oh, go up.
50.
Go up.
75.
There are times they're saying up to 80% of internet traffic is going to one company. How crazy is that, guys? Now, it's changing now because they got competition. And they're going to be facing an uncertain future in the face of companies like Disney Plus. That's when we get into risk, guys. Generally speaking, do I have anybody here? I'm not asking you to tell me specifics about what you gamble on, but do I have anybody who likes to play cards? Anybody who's a gambler? Yeah, you have to have a tolerance for risk, am I right? So I'm terrible with it. I don't like risk. When I go to, I think my record loss in Vegas, the last time I was there, I lost $13 and said I'm tired of losing money. I'm not a high roller when it comes to gambling. So I got a low tolerance for financial risk. But people who have high tolerance for risk, these are the folks who sometimes can win big. So if you have a high tolerance for risk for losing your money, you might actually win big. Generally speaking, the higher the risk, the higher the reward. So sometimes businesses take risks and they pay off, and sometimes they don't. Let me give you an example. I know I asked everybody in here who had an iPhone. Is anybody using a Google phone in here? So nobody in the room. even though Google has about 50% of market share. About 10 to 15 years ago, there was a smartphone that was not Google and it was not Apple that dominated. What was it?
BlackBerry.
BlackBerry. You know what people who got addicted to their BlackBerries, you know what they called them? Crackberries. They got so addicted to their BlackBerries. The farmer was on his BlackBerry. The government was on their BlackBerries. Well, guys, if you had to guess, here in 2020, globally, what market share does BlackBerry have right now? Globally, do they have any? It's less than 1%. How do you mess that up? Where you basically are dominating the market. Apple comes out in 2007 with the iPhone and kills them. They didn't adapt. They got so averse to taking risks and doing new things. They had the world on a string and they lost it. So sometimes not taking a risk is just as risky as taking a risk. So people, by the way, take risks sometimes within companies. You can be what we refer to as an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are people who create things on their own. Entrepreneurs create things within companies. We're going to talk about a couple entrepreneurs. Can anybody tell me, by the way, does anybody know the story of the Post-it note? How did the Post-it note get invented? We're going to show you how the Post-it note got invented. The video is a little old, but the lesson remains. I think that a lot of folks who have their own streaming services are starting to wonder why they're not getting a piece of the pie. Because this video is not going to come up, guys, I'll tell you how the Post-it note got invented. The Post-it note was created by a guy who worked for a company called 3M. 3M makes paper, adhesives, all these sorts of things. And this guy was trying to come up with a super sticky adhesive. And it wouldn't work. The adhesive did not work well. Anytime you put it onto something, the paper was easy to pull off. He thought it was a failed experiment. One of the other people in the company found out about this glue, and he had a problem he needed to solve. This guy sung in a church choir. Anytime he wanted to mark his hymnal for what hymns he was going to, he was sticking pieces of paper in the hymnal. By using this little low-tack adhesive, he was able to put notes on his hymnal without damaging the pages. He was using this for years before somebody said, wow, we could sell this. From the moment that adhesive got created to the first Post-it note hit the market, it took 10 years, guys. Could you imagine if you had a great idea waiting 10 years to use it in the modern environment? I mean, it was a different time back then. Since that time, these Post-it notes, which were created by accident, ended up being one of the most profitable parts of 3M's entire product catalog. So you can create something even within a company that might be life-changing. Now, do you think that guy got rich from his invention? No. Because he was doing it for hire for somebody else. Well, guys, what I want to do today, I want you to tell me your business ideas. We're going to break into groups here again. I'm going to be asking you to tell me 2 potential business ideas. One that would be a sure thing, one that would be a risky business, and which one you would do and why. So we're going to start over here today. We're going to count off in groups of 4. And you, sir, are number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 32, 2. 4, 1, 2, 3. All right, guys, the ones are going to gather up here. 2's in the rear left, 3's in the rear right, 4's right up front here. And I would like you to talk for a moment amongst yourselves and tell me which path you would take and why.
Sure thing, you could go with a franchise like Chick-fil-A, and especially in areas where they know of. So, like in Pittsburgh, there's Chick-fil-A, but it's not all over Pittsburgh. So if you were to open one where there's not one, I'm sure you'd get a lot of business.
Yeah, I agree, because you got brand name recognition, you've got a product that's going to be quality and consistent. Now, what would be your risky idea?
I said In-N-Out on the East Coast, but because it's not known, it could be risky, and we already have a lot of fast food burger places. So
It's pretty interesting. You raised an excellent point. In the early 2000s, Chick-fil-A came to Altoona, Pennsylvania, and it failed. It failed because nobody knew the brand yet. It had to get national recognition, and when the second Chick-fil-A came in, it was a success. So literally nobody went. It was set up in the Altoona Mall back in the days when people went to malls and food courts were something, and they couldn't stay open. So it's amazing how time can affect that stuff too. Group 2, what's our risky business and what's our sure thing?
sure thing to be able to get bank
Great.
backed by the government and then people won't need money.
Definitely a sure thing.
And our risky business would be opening a clothing line. Because I feel like that would be a market to get your name out there and get started.
Yeah, when we think about it, guys, we have so many brands to choose from these days. There's maybe one or two brands who've had undeniable staying power. Like Nike is as powerful as Nike has ever been. But some other brands are struggling. Like, for example, by show of hands here, does anybody here have a brand affinity or a brand love for the brand Levi's? They were the jeans to have from the 1950s the whole way to the early part of the 2000s, and they are losing their place in the market because it is such a saturated market and you have so many choices right now. Tough and high risk field. Let's go to group 3. What's our sure thing and what's our risky business?
Our sure thing is franchise and restaurant, like a Burger King, Chick-fil-A, something like that. And our risky business, we starting like our own restaurant because since there's so many options to choose from, like the only way you can make your business thrive had to be your concept. It had to be something that sets you apart from another, like all other restaurants around.
And you're going to have to know your market, your demographics. For example, a high-end restaurant in the town of Loretto is not going to fly because there's not the customer base for it. And if you try setting up a pizza place in a town where there's 6 pizza places, you're saturated. So you're absolutely correct. I like the idea of the brand recognition. You guys are nailing it. Let's go to our 4th group here. What's your sure thing and your risky business?
Our sure thing was a convenience mart that is like clerk free, especially on around a college campus.
Mhm.
That would be like a lot of the business would come at night, and a lot of the convenience stores otherwise would be.
And I love that idea of the clerkless store, by the way. We're talking Amazon Go. I may have asked this question in the last class. If I'm repeating myself, I apologize. Has anyone here ever purchased something from a clerkless store, Amazon Go, etc.? Yeah, we're going to be looking 20 years from now back at people working desks at stores like we look at people pumping their own gas now. It's hard to imagine within 25 years ago, nobody pumped their own gas, and now everybody does. And what was the high-risk idea?
We noticed that around Johnstown, Altoona, or this would probably go for any artistic endeavor. Tattoo artists come and go a lot.
Yeah.
But there are definitely staying powers too.
And it's competitive, and it's a risky business too, because when you get into the idea of actually inserting things into people's skin, you got liability and all that sort of stuff too. And the other thing that's interesting though, I think tattoos are probably a less risky business now than they were 20 years ago, because I think it's harder to find somebody who doesn't have a tattoo than somebody who does. It's a very common thing. It's becoming mainstream. So good job, guys. I think that's a wonderful place for us to end for today. What I'm going to ask, if you're new to class today, please come up and give me a moment of your time. Everybody else will see you Friday, and we're going to be covering our assignments on Friday. So don't worry about anything but checking in before Friday.